Hey guys, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Johnny of Some Call Me Johnny, and the great Clement to discuss the second trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. So let's get started. Well guys, I can't say I was expecting that. I wasn't even watching the PlayStation experience. I was working on something else, and I get on Twitter after I'm done with that, and everybody's freaking out about the Final Fantasy VII trailer. I look at it and holy crap, does this look good. But what are you guys' reactions to this trailer?
Am I the only one? The first thing we see in the beginning of the trailer is the legendary becomes real. It's like, huh? Okay, we're already starting with those typos, or at least mistranslations. I think it would make more sense if the legends become real. But like you, I didn't catch the PlayStation Experience event live. I was in the middle of recording Brain Scratch commentaries, actually. And if you listen closely to one of the parts of Final Fantasy IX, you can actually listen to the part where we say, "Hey, the 7 remake trailer just went live. hurry up and kill the boss so we can watch it." That's not gonna be for a while though. But yeah, that was very interesting.
You should have just cut.
Yeah, just ended the part right there.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I probably should have done that. But yeah, as soon as that recording session was over, I looked for a mirrored upload because it wasn't available right then immediately. And I saw everyone freaking out about it on Twitter, Facebook, and NeoGAF. I visit those forums frequently as well. And I just wanted to see it, and I'm glad I did because, wow, I did not expect them to have something of this caliber ready after just revealing the game this past E3. And I want it now. I really do, because it looks amazing. It looks pretty much exactly how I envisioned a Final Fantasy VII Remake to be on the PS4. Shiny as hell graphics. The music is reused from the Distant Worlds 7 soundtrack, which it's fine, but I'm kind of hoping they, remix the music for the game exclusively. And it just looks like the kind of Final Fantasy that I can just fall in love with again because of its quirky characters, the stylized action, and I'm 10 years old again.
You definitely nailed that. It feels exactly like you imagined it would be, because I remember when Advent Children and Crisis Core and all these things came out, I would imagine what if they remade Final Fantasy VII? And I used those games as a template, thinking Final Fantasy VII would have to have these cool camera angles, and they'd be this flashy and this awesome, and it's just I watched that trailer and I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking of. This is exactly what was going through my head of what Final Fantasy VII would be if it was remade. And it's a purty game. Just seeing Cloud running through the streets of Midgar, it's not just a background that you're running across. The camera's behind you, you're going through the streets, walking by the cars and stuff. I was just like, oh my god, this is in-game? This is amazing.
It's mind-blowing just how good it looks, because it's you're so used to those crappy PS1 graphics, let's be honest here. Even for PS1, it doesn't look that great.
It's got a charm.
It totally has a charm. But seeing these scenes recreated, and the funny thing is, they're slightly different, but I could point out every single one of those sequences and say, oh, that's from this, that's this point. And then as I was looking closer into it, I could see how they changed it or expanded it or anything else. The one part that really stuck out to me as far as navigation was when Cloud was making his way through the crumbling remains of Reactor 1 and ducking through and squeezing past. The fact that they added that much to it.
Yeah, because in the original game, after you destroyed, I think it was Sector 8 actually, or Reactor 8 that they blow up. It then immediately cuts to an explosion and they all jump out of the fiery building. The remake now adds a sequence in between that so that you can see them walking through the debris of the destruction they just caused. And it's cool. Little intricacies like that can add a lot more to the game's lore if they decide to do something about that. Maybe more dialogue between Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse and Barrett. Because it's one thing I always felt that wasn't really elaborated on in the original game was the relationship with Avalanche. Barrett was, because spoiler warning, if you haven't played the game at this point, you should have at this point. When Avalanche kind of falls apart at the end, Barrett was really distraught when his friends died, but I think we didn't really get enough of the relationship to justify his emotional reaction. And I'm hoping with what VII Remake adds, we can finally get that much-needed character development between Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse.
The only one that really had a close connection I felt was Jesse to Cloud. That's the only one I felt like I ever got any kind of real connection with.
Jesse had a crush on Cloud.
Yeah, it was adorable. Like I was like, as soon as that started happening, I was like, yeah, I'd be down with that, Jesse and Cloud.
I only remember their little exchange in the train sequence, which is talking about the security system, and of course the opening shot where she kicks the soldier, which the remake is hell-bent on keeping the same because that kick looks just as stiff as it did in the PlayStation 1. But that's great, though. That's great. I love that they're winking at the audience with that. It's like, yeah, we know what you guys want. We know what you guys need. I just need now another gameplay trailer of Cross-Jess and Cloud. And then I was like, oh, thank God. like, all is safe. We don't have to worry about it. And then we can get, Tifa and Aerith threatening to rip off the Don's balls. After the whole sequence.
Once I see Don Corneo dry humping the air, I'll be fine. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Palmer getting hit by a truck.
Yeah, that's right.
There's so many great scenes that I cannot wait to see them reinterpret. Like, these are the mundane scenes. Like, yeah, it's memorable because it's the first mission you go through, but even just how they expanded, like, Jesse hacking the door. That's cool. Yeah. And the some of the dialogue is the same. Some of it has been changed, and they get the sense like it's definitely giving you a greater feels like yes, Cloud is a mercenary. It's like like Barrett's saying, you better be worth it for all the gil I'm paying you.
Yeah, but let's talk about like character designs because when we're discussing Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, they seem to be pretty one-to-one. It's like they just took their PlayStation 1 models and updated for a PlayStation 4 look. Let's talk about Barrett though, because he got the most changes. He's definitely not as husky as his 7 model used to be. And they gave him shades. Now he looks like Blade.
A little bit,
Blade with a gun arm.
And a badass tattoo.
And a badass tattoo, and he's voiced by the guy who voiced Jet in Cowboy Bebop, and that's all is right with the world.
Mm-hmm.
He wears his sunglasses at night.
Yeah, I was like, I can trust this guy. He doesn't need to see where he's going. Just point and shoot.
His future's so bright, he's got to wear them.
Yeah. Yeah, so the sunshades are new. They were a little off-putting at first. Again, the Wesley Snipes parallel, but I've grown to them really quickly, and I'm interested to see whether or not that's a sticking point with him for the rest of the game, or is it like a dramatic reveal where he says, oh, "Yes, I do have eyes," when they get to 7th Heaven. But
I could see them I could see him removing it. Like those are his mission shades. When he's downtime, maybe he removes them, and he's more down to earth and whatnot. And actually, you bringing up the whole Blade Wesley Snipes parallel, that might be intentional. Make him less Mr. T this time and more Blade.
Yeah. I know, but I kind of like the Mr. T persona. I mean, if they want to, if updating means going to Mr. T and Wesley Snipes, I take Mr. T because at least Mr. T is like some sort of caricature that I can make fun of. When I think Wesley Snipes, I think Demolition Man and the guy that evaded taxes for so many years.
I feel like if they're going to add all these scenes now where like there's going to be voice acting and like camera angles, and they're making this a story properly now, whereas Final Fantasy VII was a lot more basic back in the day. You got to remember he is like the foster father of like this girl Marlene. I feel like maybe they're doing it to make him a little bit more sympathetic, a little bit more down to earth, to not make him look more like Mr. T, I guess. But he's still over the top, and I love that he's over the top, and he's still got the minigun on his arm. Looks awesome.
Oh yeah.
They definitely elongated it, though. It's like twice as long as it used to be.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense to change it that way, though, because you couldn't tell the difference between a gun arm and the regular arm, because they in 7 they all just ended in a fist. There was no fingers to their appendages. So you could tell it was a gun arm because it shot things and it was gray. But now it makes sense to actually show this is a gun, and it makes sense to have it more like a Gatling.
Just makes me more anxious for when the game is complete, so that I can get the rocket punch. It's like the giant boxing glove. See how that looks in the PS4. Again, it's the very small things that I as a longtime player, I've been playing since '97, that I want to see updated for the PS4. Those are the things that make me smile about seeing this thing in action.
I think it's a good redesign. I think, and I like all the redesigns for the other characters. Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. They look, as you said, like they were upscaled, and this is how they are. But I also like how they do seem like Resistance members. Like they're very much patchwork with their armor. They're not they're definitely not well equipped when compared to the soldiers that we see, and it just all comes across. The only thing I had a little problem with, and this is the first time we're ever hearing Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse talk. Which, in addition, I am shocked we got an English voice acting already.
Same here.
To me, that means we could be pretty far in development.
I hope so. I'm not holding on to faith on that one, but
no. But
I feel like they only showed us the first 10 minutes of the game for a reason.
Could be.
Yeah, there are speculation more like I hope that when Final Fantasy 15 releases next year, it's going to have a 7 demo of the bombing mission, because that's how
that would sell copies.
I think initially when 7 was in development, they had a demo for it, and it was the bombing mission. So I think to celebrate that, because 2017 is 7's anniversary, we can have a bombing mission of the 7 remake. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That would sell copies. I would buy 3 15s. It's like one for me, one for Matt, and one for myself.
I mean, that's why I've actually played the 15 demo, because I decided to get Type O just because I was curious about 15, and
absolutely,
and it's definitely worked on me. So
yeah, demo can. We've seen time and time again a good demo or game demo people are excited for can sell copies, and 7 would be instant buy for so many people just to see what it's all about and get a real feeling on what it's about. But I was very happy to see that they brought back the voice acting for Barrett and Cloud, and Steve Burton is back as Cloud, and I'm very excited to see him actually flex some range for once with his portrayal, since he's never really been allowed to do that. The Jesse sounded good, Big sounded good. I'm unsure about Wedge.
Wedge sounded horrible.
Yeah, didn't like Wedge at all. It's like he got a cold.
Yeah, it's like I'm not quite sure what the actor was trying to do, or the direction was making him do, because it just sounded, I don't know, so off. Like
Wedge is supposed to be like the fun-loving big guy, but he's like, it's like if Sean Astin was ingested helium while filming Lord of the Rings, and I didn't quite get it. Like, for us, right? Like, yeah,
Cloud, how you doing?
You're pretty messed up, Cloud. But maybe they just did those voices for the trailer. You mentioned returning voice actors, Steve Burton. I think Steve Burton can make a great Cloud, but I really hope he does flex some vocal range, because he was always sort of a point of contention for me with Advent Children and the Kingdom Hearts series. The guy could sound really bored at times.
Yeah.
In general, I just think that's a problem with Final Fantasy VII's direction past the original game. I always feel like whoever's directing these cutscenes for Dissidia, for Advent Children, whoever, they just always suck the life out of this thing. So
yeah, Dissidia I think is the most egregious example of Cloud. I was like, oh my god, man, you just read these lines and said, "Where's my check?"
I will get you, Sephiroth. You are the bad guy.
I don't blame Burton for that. I think it's a lack of direction, because the thing is, for some reason after 7, ever since Advent Children, Cloud has been characterized as this morose, emo, like the emo thing, and he's not that emo in 7.
No, he's not.
People always forget that about 7. When you go back and replay 7, he has a lot of comic relief, sarcastic moments to him.
He's a wise ass.
Yeah, he's a huge wise ass. He's not always down in the dumps worrying about, I have to overcome Sephiroth. Everyone who sees any of these other future things always assume he's always lamenting about how Sephiroth has control over me. He's all this and all that. And it's it's not really, that's not what the story's about in the original 7.
Drowning in my sins.
No. I mean, there's reasons for why Cloud is so different, in 7. He's more upbeat and has more life to him.
He fucking cross-dresses. That's all you have to say. That's all you got to do to summarize Cloud in 7.
I just want to hear Steve Burton say, "Let's mosey."
Yeah.
And I hope they keep that line.
Oh, that'd be great.
And as we were discussing off screen a bit before we decided to record this, the typos, keep them in as well.
Oh god.
The mistranslation. This guy are sick. Because you're a puppet, Cloud.
Oh my goodness. That'd be That'll be something else.
I guess the most polarizing thing about the trailer is I think the presentation isn't going to rub everyone the wrong way. I think most people like the presentation. They don't have a problem with that. But when the combat system got introduced, I did see a little bit of back and forth. Like, some people thought it was pretty cool. Some people were like, what did they do to my Final Fantasy? And it's weird. It's almost like a little bit like Final Fantasy 15's combat system. And it's weird because it seems like you can control Barret sometimes. It seems like sometimes you can control Cloud. I don't really know how the battle system's going to work, but it definitely doesn't look like it did in the original game. And it might turn off a lot of players. And I wanted to know what you guys thought of that.
I haven't had a chance to look super closely yet, but from what I've seen, the combat is obviously more action-based than the turn-based combat that 7 had. It's much more like 15 or Kingdom Hearts, and that's not an issue for me. And it looks like you might be able to switch characters on the fly, because for some reason they had Cloud there sometimes by himself, and then other times, when you control Barret, there was Cloud off to the side. So, and there would be this indicator showing that this is Barret in control or whatever. But the rest of the combat system, it makes me intrigued as well. Like, I think this is, like as you said, Johnny, might be more for a demo, because in the combat system there's attack, items, summons, and magic and all that. I'm like, there's no summons at this point. And there's also, I think they are going to keep at least elements of the combat system, because the limit break is there. There's a sign there for limit breaks. So I think it's going to be a mix of 15's combat with what made 7 unique. I'm withholding judgment. I think it looks cool from a visual standpoint. It's a lot more dynamic and interesting, and Cloud is doing some really crazy maneuvers that I think is going to be a lot of fun to try to pull off. And the fact that you can play as Barret at sometimes, like, okay, awesome. I might have access to every single character and be able to play as every single one. I'm not going to be playing as Cloud and having to, just have those other guys back me up or anything like that. I can control as much as I want, and that makes me much more amicable to these changes. And as so many people have said, and I agree with this thought, it's like, this is a remake. Let them try something different. It's not going to ruin the original game if you don't have turn-based combat.
The original game got released on PS4 today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's out there. If you want to, the original has not been affected at all. You can still get that turn-based combat. Yeah, you won't have the fancy cutscenes, you won't have the updated graphics and voice acting and all that, but you still have the original. So I'm willing to see what they're doing for this remake.
And I recommend, for those that are thinking about getting into Final Fantasy VII via the remake, to play the original, to get some perspective. And that way, I think either you like the original and you still got a game to go back to, or maybe you can really appreciate what changes remake establishes for the better, if any. That's pretty much what I can tell people now. Now, I like what I see with the gameplay. I definitely, I'm on the same boat as you. 15 and Kingdom Hearts is what I thought, especially with the command deck on the bottom left. That's all I thought was Kingdom Hearts. The only thing I'm not entirely sure of is the meter to the left of Cloud's HP, which people still can't discern whether or not that's the ATB gauge or it's just some sort of combo meter. Because it seems to build up when Cloud attacks enemies, and it just seems to, and it dwindles when Cloud does something fancy. So maybe, I don't know. It's like you can always do regular attacks, but you can't do any of the fancy stuff. Maybe 3-hit combos or limit breaks like Cross Slash or Braver until it's filled up to a certain point. That's the only thing I'm not sure of.
Yeah.
But for the change in battle direction, I'm not saying that a turn-based system can't work anymore. It certainly can, but as you update the looks, the hardware, and the possibilities, the options, it gets harder and harder to justify that system. Because I'm trying to imagine 7 Remake with the turn-based, like, if they didn't change the battle system at all, with how 7 looks, it looks a little flat. I'm not going to lie. It looks static, and I don't think it would blend well with the kind of game that 7 Remake could be. So I am absolutely fine with absolutely actionizing it. Because I think it's what that kind of game of that caliber needs.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like there's always going to be like those purist fans who, even with the original Final Fantasy VII, thought like, Oh man, after Final Fantasy VII, they changed Final Fantasy so much that it wasn't like the first 6 games, and now we have this moment where the Kingdom Hearts games are popular, and 15 is going to have a more action-oriented system, and so now we're going into the remake of 7, and if that's more action-oriented, I guess there's this fear of, well, is this going to be Final Fantasy for the rest of time now? Are turn-based battles going to disappear entirely because this is what's going to be popular now, and this is all the developers are ever going to make? And oh no, my Final Fantasy is leaving me forever, you know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last game that had a traditional turn-based combat system. And
10?
yeah, I guess it would be 10. It's, you know,
We'll say 10. No, 10 had a turn base. 10-2 was active time battle. They brought that
yeah,
back.
and then
I mean,
a
the
little
13
bit-
games, they weren't action-packed, the 13 games. I mean, they were still...
No.
You still had to wait for the gauge to build up, and then Lightning would run up to someone, attack them, go back to where she went, you know?
Yeah. And tell me that didn't feel more awkward.
It could be, but I put myself in that mindset. But it's also a lot more dynamic even then than what 7 was.
Yeah, like 13 was all about like getting chains and momentums. Like you had to change your job class to be like a synergist or something, because like if you kept dealing pressure to someone, eventually they'd get super weak. So like you couldn't stop attacking really. Like in 13, it was encouraging you to always be on the offensive, because otherwise his gauge would go down, and then you couldn't overbreak him to make him weaker and then drain his health really, really quickly. So 13 was very fast-paced in what they wanted you to do.
Mm-hmm.
But still a bit stiff in my opinion, because there is a certain mentality I get when, and I guess I can blame Kingdom Hearts for this, because when I'm moving in a 3D plane and using a battle system that's not quite turn-based or not quite ATB, I guess it's feeling that I should be able to move where I want, attack when I want, when I please. And with 13, I felt I didn't quite get that sort of freedom. So 7 seems to be doing that, which is why I have no problem with it. I welcome it. It's pretty much Kingdom Hearts 7 remake.
Well, when you were talking about the stiffness of if they were still like lined up as they were before in the in the original game, like compare the introduction of the Guard Scorpion in the original to this trailer, like to show it like, oh no, they're coming. Screen wipe. All of a sudden, there's a giant scorpion in front of you. Where the hell did that come from? And then, but in this trailer, you see him crawling down the walls, and they're still looking around, like, where's this thing coming from? And he's crawling, and he jumps down, and you see him unfold and become like huge, and it's like, oh, this thing's a threat. Yeah, it's the first boss, but damn if that thing doesn't look terrifying.
Yeah, and going back to like the voice actors and callback, I hope they leave in attack while its tail's up.
Yes.
And then Cloud was like, what? No.
Yeah, I can see why people are a little nervous about that sort of thing, but I think there's potential here that it should be all right. Like let's say the remake comes out and it's a complete piece of crap. It's terrible
Which is
from top
possible.
to bottom. It is totally possible.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah.
That does not take away from the original 7.
No. Yeah, I guess it would just be like disappointing to some people who were like, well, I was hoping it was going to be this way. I mean, either way, I don't really care either. Coming from the Final Fantasy 15 demo, I actually saw a lot of parallels between 15 and 7, which almost made me think it was like the exact same game. Because like when you mentioned Cloud and them going through the reactor rubble and stuff, there's a moment in 15 where you're trying to sneak up on a monster, and the characters actually crawl through this ruin. They crawl through these destroyed buildings and stuff to get to the monster. And it was kind of similar to that, where there's a lot of slower paced moments where the 4 main characters of 15 were talking to each other and you're crawling to get to this monster. And I was thinking like, I looked at the trailer of 7, I'm thinking like, oh, that kind of felt like 15 when you're sneaking up on the monster and stuff. So I feel like I know what this game's going to play like right now. And it's interesting to see. I liked playing 15, for the record. Like, I don't know if 15 is going to be a great game when it's fully realized and it comes out and the full package is awesome, but the demo I liked. I thought the demo of 15 was really good.
Can you imagine all of the different summons that you can get in 7 in the same way that Ramu was presented in that 15 demo? Because holy crap.
I want to keep things G-rated here, so I'll just say that it makes me happy. But yeah, you'd imagine Knights of the Round.
Oh god,
Zero.
Knights of the Round.
Yeah.
You know that has to be that pace is going to be quickened.
Yeah. If it's anything like how Final Fantasy 14 Heaven's Sword handled it, then Knights of the Round is going to look amazing in this remake. But Bahamut Zero, Alexander, Phoenix, all those returning summons, I'd love to see that. I'm also well, we can probably spend like 5 hours talking about what the 7 remake is going to do or not.
I mean, there's part of me that wonders how much is going to be cut, because I don't honestly believe that they're going to bring back everything that was in the original game. I even feel like they're going to cut out a lot of sections like Fort Condor or Wutai or other stuff like that. I don't think they're going to leave that in, because I feel like with the amount of effort it's going to take to build all these worlds, to make Midgar look as good as it does, and maybe they have to visit Kalm, and they have to visit Junin, and they have to visit this place. I feel like they're going to streamline the story, and they're going to, like, cut out a lot of stuff that was in the original game, just because it would be way too much effort on the developer's part to make this fully realized world again in the PlayStation 4, you know?
I understand that. I hope that's the case. Because I speak as a person who doesn't really play the Fort Condor games and detests the Wutai side quests. But I hope it's still in there, because that's a good story arc for Yuffie. And you know what I hope? You know, you're talking about detracting, I hope they add. You know who? Vincent was one of the most underutilized characters in that game. So much that they gave him his own game, which sucked. So I hope they use this as a second chance to develop Vincent a bit.
Here's my big hope with that, going off both of those things, honestly, is I actually hope that Yuffie and Vincent aren't optional characters now. I hope they are required, that you will get them no matter what as you explore through.
Yeah.
And that way the Wutai side quest has more meaning. Wutai becomes more meaningful, and then you do get more of Vincent's background and all this stuff. I hope they make it a little bit more obvious because some of the like most crucial background pieces you get are part of Vincent, which is completely optional, and that whole thing flashback between Cloud and Zack, which is pretty much required considering how big of a role Zack becomes between Crisis Core and Advent Children. I think they do need to adapt these, whereas like, nah, that's not optional. Like, yeah, these are extra bonus things. Like, no, because of the rest of the games and all the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, you might actually want to explain these things now and take the chance to fully realize them.
I wonder if they're actually going to include a whole bunch of expanded universe stuff. Like, I wonder if they're going to mention Genesis. Do you know who Genesis is?
I really hope not.
I can go without Genesis. I can go without anything from Dirge of Cerberus or anything from Crisis Core. I'd like to. Now, I've said before, I'd like to see them attempt, to expand the universe and add some of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
There actually is a hint that they will be doing some of that, because there's a quick flash in that trailer. It's pure white. It's like right after they're walking up the Cloud's walking up that stairway when it's raining, and there's a quick white flash. If you pause it, it's basically a train symbol, and it shows the sign. There's like a couple dots for train stops, and it says South Edge. Now, Edge was not a town in Final Fantasy VII. It was what Midgar became, or that portion of Midgar that you were in. They took the Advent Children took part in. That became Edge. So there is at least a hint of a little bit of stuff that was introduced later being in 7. The 7 remake, I should say.
Even if they don't try and write them into the narrative, I don't know, it could raise a lot of red flags for people, myself included, because there are a lot of things I don't like about the compilation.
Yeah. I
still nevertheless like to see them attempt something to make it better. I would just settle for, I don't know, optional boss fights. Like, hey, we hate Genesis. Make them an optional boss fight that I can beat the shit out of. Or, you know what? Dirge of Cerberus had the Omega weapon as the ultimate planet weapon. You can make that an optional super boss.
Sure.
Hey, give us an opportunity to actually fight the Sapphire weapon, the thing that the Junin cannon blows to hell.
Oh yeah.
Have
you fight him
range.
And then have his head blown off.
Yeah. You can. I think I may have said this in a brain scratch video, but you can. The Junin cannon can still blow its head off, and you can find its carcass on this ocean floor. But then it revitalizes. It becomes like a zombie Sapphire weapon. I'd love that. It's kind of an anticlimactic way of how it goes down. But yeah, it's just one of the many things that I hope that 7 Remake can expand upon. And yeah, I don't blame you, Clement, when you say that they would probably cut things to streamline because of just how the architecture of the system is so different. And
Yeah.
when you really try to expand upon it, 7 it does have a pretty big world for the kind of RPG it is. But hell, if you're making a 7 remake, you have to know the ambition placed onto this game. You got to know the expectations you guys got to meet. So I like to have faith in them that they know what they're doing and that they can satisfy both newcomers and veterans of the series.
Oh, Johnny, you silly fool.
I tell you what, I am very curious how they are going to handle the overworld, because look how detailed Midgar is. There's so much. Like, I couldn't even recognize some of those locations, like when they're doing overhead shots, because the city becomes so intricate, and you can really just get the sense that these are truly slums, which is great. But like that much detail, like when you left Midgar in the original Final Fantasy VII, yeah, it was still huge, but Cloud's still like as tall, almost as tall as it. So, are they going to try to accommodate the whole size of the world, or is they going to make the world smaller so you don't have to walk quite as far, or how are they going to do that? Or is it going to be sort of like an automatic, like go here to here to here, and they lose out the exploration? I don't know. That's the crazy thing.
I hope they leave the open world exploration, because I love riding the highway, just to go from locale to locale. 14 has showed me that they can make big worlds.
Okay.
Worlds that you can traverse through on foot, either chocobo or whatever vehicle you want to ride. If they can replicate that on the PS4, which I think is very feasible, then I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Yeah, that's very true. Because that's the thing. We haven't seen a Final Fantasy in a long time that's attempted this big open world. Even 13. Now 14 is good. That's just if you like MMOs.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
If you like, yeah, I recommend 14, and we like the 15 demo from the sound of it. So
Yeah, that's true.
It's just a matter of are you going to have a shortcut, or are you going to have a big open world like Fallout or Xenoblade Chronicles or whatever, where you can just walk everywhere, which is what I hope they do. Like, show me the size of this world. Give me, like, just show whatever they're going to do. But, there's so much potential here. And I think what has us all excited is the fact that it seems like they're tapping into that potential that we all thought that this game had, but weren't sure if they were actually going to be able to pull off. And so far, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, hopefully the hitting the sweet spots is not just relegated to the opening bombing mission, and it extends to the rest of the game.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Well, any other thoughts about this remake trailer that we got?
I hope it comes out relatively soon, but going by 15, I don't know if we're going to see it for another 2-3 years. I honestly don't think it's going to be coming out anytime soon. I feel like we're not going to see this thing hitting stores until 2018 or something. I hate to be cynical, but that's just how I feel about it. I've been burned by the 13 games in the past. I didn't like 13. I didn't like Lightning Returns. I didn't like a lot of spin-offs in the series. I hope that modern-day Square Enix, judging by the 14 praise and the fact that I like the 15 demo, can make a quality product that I'm going to think is super fun to play. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm definitely going to be getting it because Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games of all time. I want to see what the updated version of it is like. I want to see what's changed, what's different. I want to see what the combat system's like. I'm there day one, no doubt. But I'm definitely skeptical. I hope it's a good game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't. But I have hope.
I will say that this is probably a 2017 release because 20th anniversary and all that. People like to do that, and I mean, no. If I want to be really foolishly optimistic, I want to say tomorrow. Like, the game comes out tomorrow.
Surprise!
Yeah, yeah, surprising. We really loved how Sega handled the Saturn. We're gonna do that right now.
Except this would actually work.
Yeah.
The Game Awards are back on. They have to name Final Fantasy VII as best game.
World premiere. I I'm pretty much on the same boat as Clement here, so I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. I'm looking forward to it. Always will, because I love 7 as well. One of the first PlayStation games I ever really played and beaten to the extent as I have with 7. You know, I've been a Final Fantasy fan since 4, and yeah, a remake of one of my favorite games. Absolutely, of course, I'm gonna buy that. So that's all she wrote.
Yep, 7 was my very first RPG, so there's a lot of love there. It's not my favorite RPG, but it's totally in the top 10 or whatever. This is a classic good RPG. There's a reason it got so many people into the RPG genre during the PlayStation era. Like, PlayStation was inundated with so many great RPGs at that time. It was really a golden era, golden age of the for the genre, and I really hope that they can tap into that and pull it off. And I have to imagine that, like you, Johnny, I think they're going to aim for 2017. It makes sense. I have a feeling they probably have a pretty big team involved in this. Like, this feels like is top priority, like even more of a priority than 15, because they know that this is something that's going to sell incredibly well. So if they can nail it and get it just right, I think we could have something special. But there's so many different ways that this could go wrong, and I hope that doesn't happen.
We've seen more progress for 7 Remake than we have Kingdom Hearts 3.
That's a good point. Square did have another trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3. They just refused to actually release it.
Yeah, that's true. Hashtag fuck
that's
Konami.
real?
Oh, wait a minute. That's not Konami.
Those exclusives, like, I'm shocked that never came out of, like, that didn't leak out of the D23 event in Japan.
Yeah, GameXplain that one.
Yeah, Square Enix are miracle workers that they can prevent that. But, all right, guys. Well, I think that covers it for our Final Fantasy VII Remake discussion. So thank you for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And, Johnny, where can they find you at?
Well, as always, you can find me on youtube.com/somecallmejohnny. I do video game reviews and the like. Also do a new series called Spotlight, where I do some first impressions on mostly the indie scene, just to see if I can recommend people games in the indie scene, because they really are booming at this point. And I'm also currently in the middle of my Metal Gear marathon. I'm working on Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. Pray for me, because that's quite a roller coaster.
Just a bit.
Don't undersell it. No.
Just a bit. There's all those memes. Anyway, Clement, where can they find you at?
I am on the YouTube channel ClementJ642. I mostly do Let's Plays, and I tend to have opinions on video games every now and then. You can check my Twitter. And I'm playing the Final Fantasy VII of Sonic games, Sonic Colors right now. So enjoy.
Totally. Alright, and of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Final Fantasy and other things gaming too. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Da, 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 da.